Well, hello everybody and welcome back to Trek Mission Log. My name is Jason Gilbert. I have been a Star Trek fan ever since my dad introduced it to me as a little boy. The show has always filled me with wonder and awe. And I want to thank you for joining me as we work our way through every Star Trek adventure that has ever been filmed. Again, thank you for your patience. I did not get a video out last week. We had a day camp going on at our church, and I was heavily involved with that. But we're back on track this week and should be able to get a video out moving forward each week. I want to say a special thank you to all who have subscribed and a special welcome to our new subscribers. And if you haven't as yet subscribed, would you be willing to do that? It would really mean a lot to me and would help this channel out immensely. Remember, when we get to 100 subscribers, we're going to do a giveaway. Also, please check out the Instagram page at Trek Mission Log. We can interact with each other there. Now today, we're going to be looking at the original series, Season 1, Episode 17, titled The Galileo Seven. It aired on November the 5th, 1967. This episode was based on a story by Oliver Crawford, teleplay by Oliver Crawford and S. Bar David, directed by Robert Gist, and produced by Gene L. Kuhn. So without any further ado, let's dive into this great episode. The episode begins with a captain's log, stardate 2821.5. The Enterprise is en route to planet Machus 3 with medical supplies because a severe plague has struck the inhabitants of that planet. A galactic high commissioner is present named Ferris, who is overseeing this operation. On their way, they encounter a quasar-like star formation called the Murasaki 312. Spock is leading a mission with 6 other crew members to take a shuttlecraft to examine the phenomenon. Scott and McCoy are on the shuttlecraft Galileo with Spock. As they proceed on their mission, the radiation from the Murasaki is causing the Galileo to shake violently. Their communications are inoperable. They are being pulled into the center of the phenomenon. Kirk, knowing that the Galileo is in trouble, said that with the ship's instruments not working, looking for the Galileo would make finding a needle in a haystack child's play. In the background, Ferris is smiling. We then fade into the title sequence. The quasar has rendered the Enterprise's instruments useless. Ferris is arguing with Kirk about getting the medical supplies to Machus 3. Uhura tells Kirk that there's a planet capable of sustaining life in the center of the Murasaki, known as Tarsus 2. Galileo has definitely landed hard on the planet's surface. The craft is beaten up and the crew are a little worse for wear, some with minor injuries. McCoy is tending to them. Scott is trying to figure out what is needed to make the repairs to that shuttlecraft. And McCoy gives Spock an atmosphere reading and said the air is breathable. Spock said that the possibility exists that they may be on this planet for a very, very long time. The Enterprise begins their search. Ferris remains on the bridge while the search is underway. Instruments aren't working, transporters are down. Kirk orders that the other shuttlecraft called Columbus be prepped for manual search of the planet's surface. Ferris pressures Kirk to abandon the crew to get the medicine to Machus 3. Kirk ignores that, trying to exhaust every last moment to find the missing crew members. The Columbus is launched. On the surface, McCoy said to Spock that this was his big chance at command. Spock said that he is fascinated by command, but neither desires it nor doesn't desire it. It simply exists. Scott is busy making repairs. He reports that the ship has lost a lot of fuel. They have to lighten the weight of the shuttlecraft by 500 pounds. And this prompted an argument between Spock and the crew, as Spock said that likely 3 of the crew would need to be left behind. The crew feel that Spock has no regard for life. At Spock's orders, 2 crew members are searching the area when they hear a noise. It is coming from all around them. We then see a giant ape-like being with a large stone spear kill one of the crew members, one with a gold shirt, go figure. And with a loud scream, that crew member falls. The rest of the crew hear the noise. They run to investigate. The second crew member begins firing his phaser. Spock catches up with the surviving crew member, and the man describes the attacking creature like a giant ape. Spock then examines the bloody spear, and Mr. Bowman questions Spock regarding his lack of emotion at the death of the crewman. The Enterprise continues its search. No success. Ferris keeps telling Kirk that he's running out of time, and then he makes his way to the turbo lift. And before the doors close, he shouts to Kirk, 2 hours, 42 minutes, Captain. On the surface, Scott continues to make repairs to the shuttlecraft. McCoy and the crew are trying to lighten the weight of the ship so they can make orbit without leaving anyone behind. Spock applauds their efforts, but thinks that one person may still have to be left. The crew wants Spock to do a funeral for their fallen shipmate, and he refuses because of the work that they need to do to get off the planet's surface. And this further angers the crew regarding his lack of emotion. Scott reports that they now have no fuel. Something is happening outside, and Spock goes out to investigate. The noise has returned. Bowman suggests that they hit their attacker with everything that they've got. But Spock has a different idea, and the crew don't like it. They encounter their attacker. A spear is thrown at them but misses. They discover that there is more than one attacker. The crew reluctantly follows Spock's orders. And after a demonstration of shock and awe, Spock believes that he successfully put fear into their attackers and that they won't attack again for several hours. Meanwhile, Scott has an idea. He believes that he can adjust the main reactor to function with a substitute fuel supply. He wants to use their phasers and adapt them, taking their energy and converting it to fuel to get the Galileo back into orbit. Spock orders Scott to get to work on it. On the Enterprise, the transporters are now working, and Kirk orders that rescue teams begin beaming down to search for the missing crew. Meanwhile, on the planet, the attacking aliens resume their attack. The crew member that Spock left behind to keep watch has disappeared. Spock investigates without a phaser, and he locates the missing crew member. He is dead. I do believe that this grieved Mr. Spock, and Spock picks him up and carries him back to the shuttlecraft while the aliens throw spears at him. Once safely inside the Galileo, McCoy begins an argument with Spock. I love the arguments between McCoy and Spock. Unfortunately, the argument is interrupted when the aliens attack the shuttlecraft. Spock is very confused because he feels that he acted logically every step of the way. They should have been scared off by Spock's show of power, but they weren't. On the Enterprise, the instruments are slowly returning. Ferris comes in and reminds Kirk that his time is running out. Meanwhile, the shuttlecraft on the surface is still being attacked. Spock orders the batteries to be used to electrify the outside of the ship. It works as the attack stops and repairs resume. The Columbus crew reports that they too were attacked, the same creatures attacking the Galileo. Ferris comes in, and as their time is up, he orders Kirk to abandon the search and to beam up the search crews. Kirk reluctantly follows the orders and abandons the search. Scotty has refueled the Galileo. They are planning on heading into orbit. And on the Enterprise, Kirk orders Sulu to plot a course to Machus 3 at space normal speed. Sulu gives him a funny look because space normal speed means very slow. On the planet, the Galileo is attacked again. A rock is thrown at Spock and he is trapped. McCoy and Bowman free him. They successfully take off and make orbit. In orbit, Scotty says to Spock that they have 45 minutes before running out of fuel and burn up in the atmosphere. They try to contact the Enterprise, but to no avail. Spock, in a very impulsive moment, hits the fuel jettison switch, and this is what happened. The crew is angry with Spock. However, the Enterprise seized the shuttlecraft as Spock's actions created a glowing line within the Murasaki 312. Kirk orders the ship be turned around. Scotty then realizes what Spock did and smiled because Spock caused the fuel to ignite like a flare. However, the Galileo runs out of fuel and begins to burn up in the atmosphere. At the last possible moment, they are beamed away and materialize on the Enterprise. Kirk breathes a sigh of relief and orders Sulu to head to Machus 3 at warp factor 1. Back on the bridge, Kirk has a little fun with Spock. He said to Spock that an act of desperation is an emotional response. How does his logic explain that? Spock replied, "It's very simple, Captain. After reviewing all the angles, he deemed it necessary for an act of desperation. Hence, his actions were completely logical." Kirk then tells him, "Spock, you are one stubborn man," and Spock takes that as a compliment. As the bridge crew laugh hysterically, the Enterprise sails off to its next mission. I really enjoyed this episode. Going through this this week was really a lot of fun. I was engaged the whole time. The story had a great hook. It kept me glued to the screen. In fact, I'm going to say that the Galileo 7 is a near perfect episode. And as I think about it, I was only able to spot one weakness, and we'll get to that in just a few moments. Now let's look at the things that made this episode amazing. The sets, first of all, were fantastic. We not only got to see the Enterprise, but the inner workings of a shuttlecraft. This was amazing. We certainly have seen the interior of a shuttlecraft before, but the workings of it, the engineering of it, finding out what it can do, it was all showcased for us for the very first time, and I absolutely loved it. Also, the setting on the planet was amazing. They were in among rock faces, and it was all shrouded by fog and mist. It gave the setting an eerie feeling. It brought a sense of mystery to it. While we're talking about the planet, I felt they did a brilliant job with the alien beings in this episode. They were seen from behind mostly, and they were kept mysterious for the whole episode. We got to see how big they were when the one was attacking the Galileo, but it was seen from a distance. And I really think it would be cool if in a future episode the Enterprise returns to learn more about them. Sadly, I don't believe that happens, but it's good stuff here. The quasar phenomenon known as the Murasaki 312 was phenomenal. Now, I have seen this episode in the original format a few times. This is what the Murasaki 312 looked like. This is what it looks like in the remastered version. The remaster gave this episode new life. Seriously, I am a fan of the remastered versions of the original series. Please check them out. If you don't, you're missing out. The sense of peril among the crew was fantastic. It made the episode believable even though it is science fiction. Kudos to all the actors and actresses that made this episode a success. Interestingly, Kirk was in the background here. This episode certainly showcased Spock, and it explored the idea of what things would be like if Spock were in command. Again, we see the tension between the logical Vulcan Spock at odds with the emotional human Spock, and in the end, we see him abandon logic in an impulsive decision, brilliantly acted by Nimoy. Just wonderful stuff. And this episode also demonstrates the power of the ensemble. All the key players, minus Chekhov, were present and active. The bridge camera shots were fantastic at keeping Sulu and Uhura on the camera. Just good stuff. By the way, Uhura was a knockout. And then on the shuttlecraft, Scotty and McCoy were brilliant. We got to see, in my humble opinion, the first glimpse at Scotty the Miracle Worker. He did some great stuff in this episode. The teleplay, the cinematography, staging, acting, sets, it all made this episode fantastic. Ferris was an interesting character. He was almost always present on the bridge and opposing Kirk. You got the sense that there was a sadistic side to Ferris. I think that he wanted the crew that were missing to be left behind and die. He had an evil smile throughout the episode. But it is also with this character where the flaw of this episode exists. When Kirk turns the ship around, Ferris should have been present on the bridge opposing it, and he was nowhere to be found. Also, it would have been nice to see him at the end of the episode congratulating Kirk on finding his lost crew. Again, nowhere to be seen. And I found that that element was missing from this episode. However, this episode is so fantastic that I am willing to overlook that little flaw. I give the Galileo 7 5 out of 5 Starfleet insignias for awesomeness. Please take the time to watch this episode. You will not be disappointed. Well, that wraps up this edition of Trek Mission Log, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. I want to thank you for hanging in there with me, and I would love to read your thoughts about this episode. Please feel free to drop a comment below. Let's be respectful of each other and keep the comments profanity free. And also, please consider subscribing to my channel and sharing this with your friends and with your family. And I invite you to join me next time as I review a very interesting episode called The Squire of Gothos. Until next time, live long and prosper.